is time. It is time to brew your best beer.
The 2016 SJPorr Challenge is dedicated to your friend and ours, Paul Wickstein. Brought to you by Brewcraft USA, iMake, Gladfield Malting, Yakima Valley Hops, The Grain Bill, Brewers Exchange, Cake Kingdom Homebrew Supply, Hiraki Homebrew, and a special thanks to our silver sponsor.
All right, here we go. The last beer review from the first round of the 2016 SJPorr Challenge in the Southeast region. We've got 44G-38V-42T. It is a Gose brewed with coriander and Himalayan salt. So I don't know if it was Himalayan pink salt, but I'm pretty excited about this. Gose is one of my favorite styles. I've never actually brewed one though. I don't think I've ever had a home-brewed version either. So saving one of the more intriguing ones for last. Online it says kettle-soured wheat beer brewed with Himalayan sea salt and coriander. It is 4.5% ABV and 9 IBUs. So very, very low calculated IBUs. It looks like it is bottle conditioned, so we're gonna be careful. Here we go. A nice light yellow straw color. Ooh. You can hear that carbonation fade really quickly. It's almost like a Coke, which isn't necessarily a detractor from a style like this. Most Goses and a lot of kettle-soured sour beers in general have trouble with head retention. I think it has to do, maybe I'm wrong, but I think it has to do with the lactic acid bacteria. A lot of times breaking down some of the proteins and amino acids that kind of build that head and let it form. I don't see much carb up the sides of the glass, so it indicates it might be a little lower on the carb side. But it's a pretty beer. It's cloudy, it's hazy, but most Goses are. So it's pretty two style. It's like a light straw color. Cool looking beer. Absolutely no head whatsoever left. Ooh, it's got a really nice nose to it. To me, you can smell the coriander right off the bat. A little bit of a tartness in the nose. I don't think, unless I knew it was a Gose, I don't know that I would call it any kind of salinity, like any kind of salt character to it. But I think power of suggestion leads me to believe it's there. But really kind of a nice coriander nose to it. Almost like a little lemon orange peel type nose. It's pretty inviting. So I'm gonna jump in. Cheers. Did I say the, yeah, I said the number. Oh well. Here we go. Woo. First off, before I even go any further, I'm going to give kudos to the brewer for stepping out there in doing this kind of a style for a competition like this. Gose, I think a lot of people may have a perception that's kind of easy to do. You just throw some salt and coriander in there and it's, you know, make it a little tart, squirt some lactic acid in there and you're good to go. Is not the case. A well done Gose is hard to do. So kudos for going for it. You definitely get the salt, the salinity to it, kind of hangs out on the back sides of your tongue, and you get a pronounced coriander note to it, for sure. And it does have kind of a lemony, citrusy character to it, but I think that's actually because of the kettle sour nature. It brings out kind of a lemony tartness. So it's not real sour, but lightly so, and which is typically what a Gose should be. The carbonation is really light. It's not bad though, because a little bit of tartness lifts it a little bit, but probably still on the low side. No real head can even really be brought back up. You get some bubbles for a quick second. You get a little cap there, but then it's gone. I'm going to sit with this, sip on a little bit more, evaluate, and I'll be back with some final thoughts. All right, to close out the SJPorr Challenge first round, the Gose, I feel like had the building blocks to be a really, really good beer. There was a couple of things that, well, let me preface this with, I think I'm kind of spoiled on the Gose front, and it's a little unfair to compare. In my opinion, we have one of the better Goses around that makes its way to our market from South Carolina. The Westbrook Gose, to me, is one of the quintessential American examples of a Gose that I get to try quite a bit. So I'm a little picky on that front, and so when I make some of these distinctions, it's more of just being picky and not necessarily, you know, being too harsh. To me, there were a couple things you've got that a Gose kind of really melds is sourness. So you've got a tartness element, you've got the salinity, you've got the coriander, and then you've got some carbonation. And all those need to work kind of harmoniously to kind of create a light, refreshing, not too overpowering beer while making it complex. So the complexity is definitely there. But on one side you had the carb and the tartness, which I think was a little bit too low. And then on the other side of the coin, you had the salinity, the coriander, that I think was a little too high. To me, Gose needs to be a little bit more understated than this on the spices and the salt, and then a little bit more pronounced on the tartness and the carbonation to where it kind of pushes through all the flavors on your palate. The salt and the coriander isn't bad, but I'd rather have it as more of a backdrop and an undertone than the pronounced profile that you're tasting throughout the experience. Again, this is also coming from someone who's never made a homemade Gose, and if I brewed this, I would be happy with it. So let's be very clear with that. I would sit and drink this most definitely. And it was also fermented very cleanly. There's no, obvious fermentation flaws, but just a few tweaks that I think could have elevated this from being pretty good to really, really good, with really just some very, very simple and easy tweaks. But overall, a good beer. And it's got me wanting to do one of these, although it's starting to get a little bit cooler. I may have to wait till next spring to jump into this. But great attempt. And again, kudos for putting in a complex, slightly more obscure style into this competition. I admire that for sure. So cheers. This was the Gose from 44G-38V-42T. And that is it for the first round for me. Good luck to everybody out there. Cheers.